Prince William and Catherine's tour of Jamaica was disrupted by a lot of talk of racism, basically driven by one former kind of sort of royal reporter. Hello everyone, my name is Brittany. Welcome to Royal News Network. And today we're going to be talking about the second leg of Prince William and Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge's tour of the Caribbean. This time they were in Jamaica. But it wasn't really the tour that was making the news as much as it was one former royal reporter, this time Omid Scobie, who has been portrayed by many in the media at this point as just simply a friend of Meghan Markle's, has been really making waves and trying to disrupt the tour and portray both Prince William and Catherine as racist without really any proof. And he took one photo, took it out of context, made the most negative implication possible. And so that's why today I'm wearing my hashtag Team Cambridge shirt. I had these made. I have Team Cambridge and Team Sussex. And I plan on doing a giveaway with these shirts that I have. And so if you are interested, feel free to subscribe and I'll let you know when we're going to do that. And so in case you don't know what Royal News Network is, we cover royal news, gossip, fashion, history, television shows, movies, all these sorts of things just kind of related to royals. So this entire channel is dedicated to royals. And today we are talking about Jamaica. And so I'm going to start today just talking about the positive, and then we'll kind of move on to kind of this basically kerfluffle that happened, kind of really driven by Omid Scobie and others who just really want to make the most negative implications possible. In this case, about a photo that was entirely innocent. So without further ado, let's get started. Prince William and Catherine were doing a tour of the Caribbean, and for the second leg of their tour, they were in Jamaica. And so when they arrived off the plane, they got off, they received a military reception. Catherine looked gorgeous in yellow. Her fashion has been pretty much on par for this trip. I have one outfit that we saw today that I'm not particularly fond of, but she made a very, very beautiful impression. Prince William took part in the military parade. Catherine sat in the kind of viewing audience and enjoyed it. And then they went off and met with Governor-General of Jamaica, Sir Patrick Allen. He represents the Queen in Jamaica. And so they met with him and they had a little bit of reception. And then they went off Trenchtown. So this is a location that has connections to Bob Marley. And so they really were there kind of to engage with kind of the general public. And they also met with a footballer, Raheem Sterling. And so this was an opportunity for Prince William even gamely played a bit of football, and there were just a ton of people that gathered around. I mean, it really seemed a bit claustrophobic in a way, gathered around to watch them. And in addition, they also met with some of the bobsled member teams. Jamaica is kind of famous for having this bobsled team that made it to the Olympics, despite, living in the Caribbean, being surrounded basically by heat and humidity all the time. They had a team that went to the Winter Olympics, which was kind of a huge deal. They made a movie about it. I believe it was called Cool Runnings. And so it's kind of a big deal. So they got in the bobsled, they took a picture with the team, and it really was just kind of a really fun, festive atmosphere. Catherine wore actually a vintage dress, so she's pulled out a couple of vintage pieces for this trip. And in addition, they went by and they went to Bob Marley's house and they actually played a bit on the bongos. And so they really seemed to have just a great fun. It was kind of, the sun was kind of setting as they ended up their day. And so they took time though to try to meet as many people as possible in Trenchtown and really try to kind of meet and greet and really try to get to know a lot of these people. Because obviously the Queen is, coming on her twilight years. And so it'll be King Charles before long, and then pretty soon King William and Queen Catherine. And so they're really looking to the future. But some of this was disrupted the next day. Now, I won't get into all the negativity that happened right now, but so in the morning, Catherine and William on their second day, they met with the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness. And so this was an opportunity for them. They do this in every tour. It's kind of a meet and greet to kind of reestablish these relations, especially in relation to the Commonwealth. Obviously, the Commonwealth, there are certain countries where the Queen is head of state, certain countries where she is not. But there are over 50 countries within the Commonwealth. And most of these are in the Commonwealth for the sole purpose of having great economic benefits. And these kind of tours are designed by the Foreign Office. And so Prince William and Catherine's job as royals is to go and just kind of mingle with you know, these prime ministers, and just, you know, it's called soft diplomacy. So really they're building relations that kind of can extend to Prime Minister Boris Johnson's relationship and other relationships. And so Prince William and Catherine really just have no power in this situation. They go where they're told. This is kind of true for kind of, you know, sometimes royals do get to kind of push, you know, whichever country they go to. I think Catherine was very interested in going to Denmark to learn more about the early childhood development programs. And so she was kind of like, I would really like to do this. But oftentimes for these type of tours, they're dictated by the Foreign Office to cement these relationships. So Catherine and William don't have a ton of choice in this matter. And so when they met with the Prime Minister, his kind of first thing out of his mouth was, yeah, we don't want the monarchy anymore. Just listen to this clip here. All right, so you know, for me, this is deeply unprofessional because, you know, Prince William and Catherine, again, they don't have a ton of power in this situation. And he's immediately telling them, yeah, we don't want you here, but we do want you here because you guys kind of increase our profile, and ergo we want you here, but we really don't want you here. It's kind of a rude way to go about things. Obviously, if this is something, if Jamaica is going to vote to not have the Queen as their head of state, they are perfectly able to do that, no worries at all. But why bring it up to William and Catherine, kind of embarrass them on the world stage? I mean, they dealt with it with an immense amount of grace because that is their job. It's to deal with things with an immense amount of grace. And so they really did, but it was just exceptionally rude, I thought, and just unprofessional and kind of political grandstanding, because I guess he may have said something similar to Harry before, but yet they haven't voted on it, and yet he welcomes them back and reaps the benefit of having royals in his country and the news coverage that it gets. So it feels like kind of a slap in the face to them and disrespectful. So that was kind of how the morning started off. But Catherine and William are deep professionals. Like Catherine on her tour of South Asia 10 years ago, the pictures of her topless came out, and she went through all those engagements as if nothing had happened. You could never see it on her face. She did break down in private. I believe Rebecca Deacon talked about how she was deeply, deeply upset about this, but she did not let it influence her when she was out. And I think that's just a huge sign of just professionalism and just getting on with it. And just a huge shout out to Catherine for doing that. And Prince William and Catherine did that here too. And so they just kind of was like, well, okay then. Like, what else are you supposed to do? And so they went on to their next engagement, which was going to a teaching school. And so Catherine is obviously a huge, huge passionate advocate for early childhood kind of development and making sure that children have the best start that they can in life. So this helps kind of with their mental health as well. So they went to this teaching school, and Catherine met with some of the teachers, and she did kind of this roundtable thing with them. And there was this really cute moment between Catherine and William. And so check this out.
I'll start.
I'm out of my depth here.
No, you're not.
I'm listening.
No, but obviously, I think, you know, it's a real passion of mine, early childhood education.
Isn't that so sweet? Catherine really, over the last couple of years, has deeply, deeply blossomed. And I think it's been really, really wonderful to see. For a while, she was so timid. She just didn't seem to do kind of like anything really. And so she was kind of more of a closed horse. But this is clearly her issue. And this is something she's really gravitating towards and really trying to develop, which is fantastic to see. She also gave a speech. And I'll play you a little clip here.
Everybody, and thank you so much for such a warm welcome. It is wonderful to be here at Shortwood Teacher Training College. Since William and I arrived in Jamaica yesterday afternoon, we've been touched by the warmth this island has shown us. And this is only being reinforced here today.
All right, guys, I just think that's great. And they also went to a maternity ward where they met with some of the staff members there and learned more about what they're doing to help children. And in addition, they also went to every aspect of this trip, every leg. They've had a little bit with the military. This time they went to some sort of like training thing. And Catherine put in all these obstacles for William to make it kind of as hard as possible for him to kind of navigate. And so he kind of made a comment on that. And so they clearly have a lot of fun and do a lot of things together. And I think that's a huge part of healthy relationships is that you have fun together. And they clearly do. They're, I think, friends first and foremost. And, you know, they're a couple as well. And so it just really, really does work. And so it was so fun. Catherine wore this day in the morning and afternoon, wore this gorgeous white pantsuit. I love these pantsuits and these white shoes. I'm like, I just ordered a pair of kind of similar colored shoes, which I may show you because they're kind of inspired by royals. And I'm just super excited to get them because again, it's just kind of light and breezy and fun. And so I love also her move towards suits. She hardly ever wore suits. I mean, it's just been in the last year or so that we've really seen, especially the last couple months, we've seen her a lot more pants. Usually before she wore exclusively dresses. And not that I mind that, I'm a dress person, I love dresses, but I think it's great to see her kind of branching out because she does have such a great shape for suits. And so it was really fantastic to see. And then the evening reception, ooh, she knocked it out of the park. So Catherine wore this Jenny Packham sequin ruche dress with kind of rhinestone beading. It was this gorgeous, gorgeous green color. I kind of feel mixed about it. I'll go into more on the fashion video tomorrow, but I kind of feel mixed because the way the rhinestones are, they kind of, and the tulle of the dress strikes me as slightly juvenile, but at the same time it is gorgeous and she looked gorgeous. Her hair looked fantastic. She did a great updo. And she also had some of the Queen's emeralds on, so some emerald earrings and a bracelet that we haven't seen from her before. So it was really great to see her. And then Prince William made a very, very historic speech about the impact of slavery. So now this will be interesting to see if this had always been planned or if because of the kerfluffle on social media that I'm going to go into here in a minute, that he felt the need to kind of add this. So this was not an apology for slavery, but acknowledging the abhorrent practice that it was. So take a listen to the speech.
Jamaica has witnessed huge change. But what hasn't changed is the irrefutable Jamaican belief in upholding democracy and working together with other nations in support of peace, security, and international law. Prime Minister, your strong statement condemning the invasion of Ukraine is testament to that. Catherine and I were deeply moved by the plight of the Jamaican students who have recently returned safely from Ukraine. Their experiences are a reminder of the terrifying toll and inequality of war and conflicts across the world, which we must never forget. Particularly this week, with the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. I strongly agree with my father, the Prince of Wales, who said in Barbados last year that the appalling atrocity of slavery forever stains our history. I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent, and it should never have happened. While the pain runs deep, Jamaica continues to forge its future with determination, courage, and fortitude. The strength and shared sense of purpose of the Jamaican people, represented in your flag and motto, celebrate an invincible spirit. It is this same spirit that spurred on the Windrush generation, who came to the United Kingdom to help rebuild after the Second World War. We are forever grateful for the immense contribution that this generation and their descendants have made to British life, which continues to enrich and improve our society. I'm delighted that a national monument acknowledging and celebrating the Windrush generation by Jamaican artist Basil Watson will be unveiled later this year in Waterloo Station in London.
All right, guys, so let me know what you thought of his speech. I mean, I totally am for people acknowledging this, what has happened in the past and the damage that has done. But kind of the big thing about this trip is that even before they got there, there was a lot of rumblings that there was going to be some pretty big protests, denouncing colonialism and demanding reparations. Now, for those of you who don't know, this has happened in the United States a bit as well, is that certain politicians and certain other people who are of African descent are saying that they need reparations in order to move forward. So reparations for slavery, even though none of those people were slaves. So it's just one of those things, it's become it's been bounced around in the States from time to time, because I mean, it's like, how do you determine who gets this? How do you determine, because some people came later, some people came earlier. It's just a way kind of punishing those people, like everyone, even though, I've traced my family's ancestry back to the American Revolution. I can't find, I had a whole generation of my family fight in the Civil War on the Union side. And so it's like, how do you punish people who may have held slaves and don't punish, it's just a very complex issue. And it's just one that there is no resolution. And I disagree. I'm a historian by training. I disagree with the idea of apologizing something that you had nothing to do with. So I was reading this book. It was called Saints and Bullies, I believe. And it started off kind of interesting. And I was reading it. And this guy was talking about how he was on the Sermon on the Mount, kind of by the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. And there was a massacre that happened there, during the time of the Crusades. And he had an Arab translator there with him. And he was like, I'm so sorry for, what these Crusaders did in the name of Christ. Obviously, it was terrible what they did, no doubt. But it's like, well, are you going to ask her to apologize for Arabs going into Spain and fighting in the Battle of Tours and then the Ottomans? It's just like, once you start apologizing for things, there's no end to it, because humanity is full of conflict and battles and people dying, and that's just kind of how it is. So if you start on this path, there's just no end to what you could apologize for. And so I really think Prince William did acknowledge what has happened in the past, but did not necessarily apologize for it personally, because it's like, he is not responsible for it. The Queen is not, Charles is not, and he doesn't need to apologize for it. And so I think that was a really good way for him to go. But kind of looking back, kind of the whole thing, there was a big issue that happened with Omid Scobie. So for those of you who maybe don't know or don't remember, Omid Scobie has been portrayed now basically as a friend of Meghan Markle. That's his designation. Basically, to all the royal reporters, he's a bit of a joke. Richard Eden makes fun of him quite a bit. And so he made these comments about these pictures that were taken of William and Catherine. And there was a fencing around the soccer field. I would imagine that the fencing has always been there. It looked like in some of the pictures, like they were able to kind of break down some of the fencing. So it looked like it's been there for quite a while, and they were shaking people's hands through the fencing. And this is what Omid Scobie had to say about it. I do wonder what the hell palace organizers were thinking with some of yesterday's photo moments. The planning and recon that goes into every step of these engagements is next level. How can no one think to avoid certain imagery? This is why diversity on a team matters. Many people pointed out to Omid that the team at Archewell is not diverse. So that was kind of funny and ironic. But the whole thing is like, well, so was Raheem Sterling. He was also shaking people's hands through the fence, because there's fencing there. There's fencing around parks and stuff. Like, this is not surprising. And when you look at it, I looked at that photo, only saw an innocent picture. that he immediately went to the most negative thing and the most negative implication possible, which is that Catherine and William are racist. And actually the hashtag Catherine is a racist was going around on Twitter. I saw Prince William is a racist has gone around quite a bit on Twitter because partially because of what Omid Scobie has been pushing. And these comments that were taken completely out of context by Prince William about Ukraine. And so this idea that you immediately go to the negative is that you were looking for the negative. You were looking for whatever you could say that would be negative, that could have negative implications on Prince William and Catherine. And I think that's entirely unfair, and it's a character assassination, effectively. You're just saying that because if you're thinking innocently, you don't see any problem with those pictures. And I'm sure, regardless of diversity, nobody would see a problem with the pictures because they were there. They saw the massive crowds. There were massive crowds there to meet Catherine and William. And they were trying to meet with people, trying to shake their hands. And there was a fence up. Sometimes it happens. And so if it's a fence in the UK, then it's not racist. But if it's a fence in Jamaica, it's racist. It doesn't make any sense. It's somebody pushing a particular narrative at the direction and implication of Meghan Markle and probably Prince Harry. They've been really pushing this racist narrative, I guess, to get the royal family kicked out. I don't know why. Because, again, it's a character assassination, which is entirely unfair. How would you like it if somebody assassinates your character for no reason? It's just a very, very deceitful and manipulative tactic that stirs up a certain segment of the population that really, truly engages in this. But these statements were totally without merit. I don't even think there was really an official protest. There was a couple people with signs, and that was about it. Everybody was super stoked to meet with them. And they went around, and Catherine and William tried to meet with as many people as possible. Should they have ignored the people by the fence to avoid the photo op? What Omid's saying makes no sense. And he is somebody who's obviously just trying to stir up trouble at this point. You can choose to look at negative. I always try to choose to look at positive as much as I can. And I choose to believe they just thought it was an innocent picture and somebody else tried to just basically make the worst implication possible. And it kind of did taint the rest of the trip because many of the royal reporters were trying to address the issue saying, no, this is not what happened. Richard Palmer said, who's a royal reporter for The Express, would it have been better for the royals and Raheem Sterling to ignore all those excited people screaming for them to come over and shake hands through a fence around a football pitch? It might have stopped a few people with an agenda making mischief, but upset the ignored fans. Chris Shipp said, who works with ITV, can we insert some sense and facts into this fence photo in Trenchtown? There was a fence around the football pitch. People gathered to watch the match with Raheem Sterling. William and Catherine went to say hello. Just as they did, they also said hello to crowds in the street. End of story. Move on. Other famous people went to the same perimeter fence at the same time as William and Kate and did the same thing with the crowds who gathered there. Dickie Arbiter also said, thanks, Chris Shipp, for setting the record straight. It's a sad, sad world when the facts get distorted for the sake of fake news. It's just totally innocent situation that got blown completely out of proportion by a group of people with an agenda to try to malign somebody else. I mean, it's just a terrible thing to do without the context. I mean, obviously context is a huge aspect of this. There were crowds, and then it's why are you criticizing one person and not the other? And so there was just no reason for Omid to do this. I just looked through again, I just didn't see any apology from him regarding the situation, nor did he apologize for blowing Prince William's comments last week about Ukraine way out of proportion and again portraying him as racist, ignorant, all these sorts of things. And so this is really becoming quite a serious issue with someone with a clear aggressive agenda. And obviously Omid is not on the tour. I don't know if he was ever on any of William and Catherine's tours, but he is definitely persona non grata at the palace at this point. And, if I was the palace, I'd be looking and seeing, if there are any legal options, what kind of, incentives are there? Because at this point, with somebody like this, it's very hard to move forward because obviously Harry and Meghan claim the same thing. They claim people are maligning them, making fake news, false news about them. and yet Omid Scobie can do it over here on behalf of basically Harry and Meghan and their narrative and attack Prince William and Catherine. It's just completely unfair. It's unprofessional in journalism. Obviously, journalism is all about seeking the truth, and narrative right now is a huge aspect of journalism. Journalists, a lot of them are pushing a narrative, whatever it happens to be. You know, for me, I try to be as objective as possible, but I am Team Cambridge, guys. No doubt. But, you know, I will say, like, Catherine's dress arriving at the Bahamas today, not my favorite. And so I try to be as honest and as possible and try to call things out where I see things that I'm like, and you know, and tell people they've done good things too. And so that's kind of what we try to do here on this channel. We try to see it from all sides because everybody does have everybody does have an opinion, and this is kind of a opinion-driven newscast, but I hope you guys really enjoyed it and found it interesting. Obviously, Catherine and William, they left Jamaica today, and so they kind of had a military passing out ceremony, and I did forget to add this, but oh my gosh, Catherine looks utterly stunning. This lace dress, which I think is probably my favorite look from the trip so far, was done kind of in honor of the Queen. She's actually kind of emulating her a bit from her tour in Australia way back in the 50s. And so Catherine's really going for the vintage inspired look. She had a vintage handbag yesterday. And so it was just lovely to see her really kind of embrace this very simplistic royal style. And her and William, especially him in the white uniform, her in the white lace dress with the hat, it was a stunning look. So regardless of what certain people want to do, Catherine and William just go on with it, which is all that they need to do, and they come out looking better for it. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and feel free to subscribe as well. I would love, love, love to have you back. We have so much planned. I will be going to the Platinum Jubilee later this year, and so I'm looking forward to covering it for you guys and giving you guys as much content as possible surrounding it. So if you have anything you would really like to see from the Jubilee, please let me know down below, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.